Hello and welcome to the Rope Access and Climbing Podcast. This is your host, Mikey Stevenson, and today we're going to be talking to the founder of Women in Rope Access, Leslie Poulson. So I guess let's get started with, let's talk about who you are, where you come from, and introduce yourself, please.
All right. My name's Leslie Poulson, and I live in the Coast Mountains of British Columbia, Canada, in a little town with 60 people in the middle of nowhere. But clearly not from Canada. I come from New Zealand originally.
All right. How long have you been in Canada?
Be almost 10 years.
Okay. Awesome. So I guess, how long have you been doing rope access?
2013, so almost 7 years in rope access.
7 years? Yeah. How long is level 3?
I just did my first research, so just over 3 years.
Awesome. Where were you able to do your research?
I did it in Vancouver at Pacific Ropes, right before everything got shut down. I think I might have been the second or third to last course before it all turned to shit.
Yeah. This COVID pandemic is definitely causing some issues for everybody to train and work, and yeah, it's quite the interesting situation.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, you are also the founder and operator of Women in Rope Access, correct?
You cut out a little bit there, but yes, I started at the
The
Women
founder
in Rope Access
of Women in Rope
Yeah,
Access?
okay,
Yeah. When did you start Women in Rope Access, and why did you start that, I guess, page?
I started that in mid-2015. I was a pretty brand new level 2 when I did it, so I caught a lot of flack for that. But what I think people maybe don't realize is I didn't start it to like start a movement or be any sort of leader of anything. I was on my 2 weeks off on a 2-on-2-off rotation, and it was just rainy. It was boring. There was nothing to do because it was so wet. And off the back end of a comment from a boss a couple of weeks earlier, I was just curious as to where all the rest of the women were that did this in the world. Like, at that point in time, I only knew a handful of women that did rope access. So I wanted to know, were those numbers pretty normal across the globe? Were they more, were they less? What do they do? Do they do oil and gas? Was it mostly city work? Did a bunch do geotech? I don't, just curious. That's all it was. And it kind of grew from me thinking, a couple of people like pity like it, and might get shared a couple of times, and then I'll go back to work and it'll all be over. But then it sort of went far beyond that, and now it's quite a lot larger than I ever thought it would be. And it's not the original page was the public Facebook page that you will know, that you will have seen on Facebook. There's also an Instagram account that came later. And beyond that, there is actually a private group that you may not know about that's just for the female rope access technicians. No one else is allowed to be a part of that group. And that's the platform that I am most sort of proud of, and that I like using the most, because you know what these Facebook pages are like for rope access. It's a dog eat dog world. Like, it's pretty brutal out there. You can't post a photo or an opinion or make any sort of comment without somebody, coming at you. So
yeah, everyone has an opinion. They just want to rip everything apart. It's very disheartening. And part of my podcast is trying to like nip into some of these flaws within the industry.
For sure. And and it can just be really unprofessional as well. So a lot of people, like men and women, don't want to be associated with these public pages, the Women in Rope Access one included. Like, it's just another page, right, that just can potentially get nasty and unprofessional. So the private group is an amazing place where we can sort of feel a bit more safe about posting questions, like the questions that start off, this is going to be a dumb question, but, and, stuff like that. I passed my level 2 or my level 3 or whatever today. I'm so excited. It's a really safe place for doing that, posting photos, whatever, because everybody is so supportive in that group. It's just female rope techs there for each other, and it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
So
I was just on a page there yesterday or the day before, and just the amount of bickering back and forth between all these different technicians, and it was it was really disheartening. I kind of made a joke. I was like, can we all just, hug already and just get over this? Like, I know it's probably the worst thing to think about right now in this pandemic is hugging people, but it was like kind of like a little kick at them. I was like, why can't we just all get along? Like, we're all in the same industry. It made no sense. So I really find that that's disheartening that you had the same sort of kickback from an industry whole, when all you're trying to do is do some good and try to help out and try to get the conversation started, trying to get the outlook that women are in this industry. Um, we don't have enough in this industry, in my opinion, and I would love to see so many more.
Yeah.
And it's just really disheartening when you see that people are out there just to kind of like rip it apart.
People, they mean well, or they're just, oh, I was just joking, calm down. But like the jokes just fuel the sexism that you do have to deal with sometimes, not all the time. So yeah, it's just nice to have that separation.
Yeah, and once one person starts, then everybody starts. It just feeds fuels the fire, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can kind of see why you would want to have a private kind of conversation, excluding the rest of the world, right? It's kind of good to have a safe place to kind of talk about different conversations. You've been around me enough, you understand that there's no stupid question, and I'm really open to that concept of like, there's no stupid question. We're all here to learn, and we don't know what we don't know. And in a teaching environment, that's huge, because if there's one individual in a class of two, or a class of 8 people, it's really powerful, because that one person may ask the question that other people are wondering but are intimidated because of that factor, that it may be a stupid question, and it's really good to see that people do stand up and ask that question. So
Totally. And I had instances on that public page, when it was the only thing that we had at that time, where, a woman would come on and go like, I desperately need to find a pair of work pants that work under a harness. And of course, people start chiming in, oh, of course they're talking about clothes, it's just like, cut it out.
yeah, absolutely. Female bodies are not built like male bodies, and majority, I would say probably all, rope access manufacturers, sorry, um, manufacture harnesses based on the dimensions of a male body, not a female body. There may be one harness or 2 harnesses out there that you know of, I don't know, that are actually designed for the female body, and like, that would be amazing, because you're not made like females don't have the same curvatures as the males. So
As the males.
yes, males. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Males are more like squares, not curvatures.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I mean, I haven't found the harness yet that's designed for women, but hey, when that happens, let me know, because
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we can start something.
yeah.
Awesome. Now, I understand you've written an article on this topic of women in rope access. I feel that there's definitely 2 sides to a story. And I'm sure that there's lots of people that kind of looked at it as like, oh, you're just like looking for a cry out or whatever. And then there's other people that are a little bit more open-minded. They're like, hey, this is awesome. There's actually conversation about this. So when you wrote this article, you had a perspective. You were a level 2 at that time. I don't know how many months into your level 2 at that time. Has your perspective changed since the article you wrote? Not just as a level 2 and just because of the time difference between now and then, but also as a level 3.
Yeah. I had forgotten that I'd written that article. I made the Facebook page, and then somebody approached me and said, would you like to write an article? And I was like, hey, why not? He was offering to pay me in gear. So I was like, yeah.
Winning. Who doesn't like gear, honestly?
Right. So I wrote it, and he asked for something from a woman's perspective. And looking back and now reading it again, I wrote it like, this is how all women get, have an experience. And it was just so badly worded in that respect. Like, that was my experience at the time. And since then, I've met and spoken to people from all sorts of countries in the world, Nepal and South Africa and Malaysia, and they do not have the same experience we do. We are so lucky in, Canada and New Zealand, first world countries, compared to them. They got a fight for their place. And yeah, so I do regret writing it like, this is what women do and how we feel, because it was just me. And yeah, like you said, the difference between level 2, brand new level 2, I think I'd only been level 2 for a couple of months.
Okay.
And at that time, everything I wrote was true. It was very, I felt like if you just worked really hard, harder than most maybe, you got on with people and you didn't take shit from dirtbags, you'd get the respect you deserved, and you'd get brought on jobs, and everything was all good. Everything was golden, and that's how it was for me. Then I got my level 3, and I don't want it to sound all doom and gloom once you get your level 3. For the most part, it's amazing. Like 95% of the time, I have absolutely no problem. But, there's always a couple of people that maybe spoil it for the rest. Like I've had an instance where I was just getting attitude and no respect and from a certain guy. And long story short, he was transferred to another crew because of it. And then a few, that level 3, a male came to me and said, like, this was just going through a major divorce with his wife. He hates all women right now. I really wouldn't take it personally. So, there's things like that that's not okay. I mean, it's a sucky situation, crappy behavior, but there's nothing you can do about it. It just is what it is. And one day maybe we'll get past it, but at this point in time, that's what it is. And so I hadn't had those experiences before as a level 2. So now, my perspective has changed a little bit. It's a bit more challenging being in charge. Fewer people want to be told what to do by a woman than just work alongside them. So, like I said, 95% of the time, absolutely fine. But here or there's a few bumps.
Right. All right. So that's good. I guess just like anything, you are going to encounter, hurdles along any career path. Now, on that, as a female, a smaller female, even not even, a larger female, but a smaller female, on that perspective of a level 3 and being in that position, do you find that you have to look at jobs differently? Because you did mention in the article that some things you have to work a little bit harder or make more mechanical advantage. Do you look at being a level 3 in the field the same way, where you have to kind of look at things slightly different, like based on your crew? If you have a large individual on a job, and how do you kind of overcome those difficulties?
Yeah, definitely. Just like in the training center where you've got to adapt, same as in the field. I mean, now everything, you aim to rig everything for lower or for rescue anyway. So it's pretty much not all that difficult to deviate for my size and capabilities or whatever. Like I've definitely had a big crew on a shutdown. I probably had like 15 guys, and one of them was over 400 pounds, and they said he was okay to work and he wasn't allowed to use a crawl. But I made the call that I didn't want to put him anywhere near a rope. We needed ground people as well, because we didn't have there was no real option to rig for lower in that scenario. It was a very simple pick, but it was a pick all the same. So, I made the call to not put him on rope. And it was only a couple days, so it wasn't that big of a deal, I don't think. But yeah, so it doesn't change it that often because, like I said, it's generally rigged for lower. But if there are significantly big people on the crew, then yes, you got to look at it differently. But in saying that, there's not a lot that a little trick or a little bit of extra advantage, mechanical advantage, won't solve.
Yeah. And that's like how I teach. You've been involved with me teaching, and I teach like little people problems is what I call them. And it's really one of those things. And I dealt with that and came up with that kind of throughout my training career. There was, like when I have a individual going for their 1 to 2 or their 2 to 3, that's a small female. I've had literally people come up, like ladies come up to me and just hand me back the paperwork, say I'm out of here, and I'm like, why? You haven't even started yet. We haven't even got through the paperwork yet. And they're just like, everybody in this room is 250 plus pounds. Like, how am I at 105, 110 pounds going to even manage this? And that was one thing. It was just understanding how you move and understanding your strengths and weaknesses, and not being afraid to use the additional mechanical advantage and those additional little tricks, because you don't have the strength or the power output that those big burly people do. And that's just the nature of it, and just having to work around those complications. Like, I'm not a big person myself either, so I really focus on those aspects myself. So awesome.
Yeah.
Now, do you still think that there's a gender gap in the industry of rope access outside of the difference between mass numbers? I'm talking, do you think that you're treated, or females in general are treated differently than males because of that? Like, there is that gender gap, or do you think that we're kind of leveling out in the industry that you know of?
That's tricky. Yeah. I'd say there's definitely still a slight gap. The gap size is going to differ depending on who you're dealing with, obviously.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, no different. As a supervisor, usually the only female supervisor on site, I get put on every different variety of jobs that everybody else does. It doesn't switch. Or I don't get, shoved in a corner doing one certain thing because that's the easiest or whatever. But then occasionally you'll go to a different site or work for a new boss that doesn't know you. And that's definitely happened to me once for a period of a couple of months where, there was most of the work going on was welding and pipe fitting and big jobs, moving around big heavy equipment and whatever. And they stuck me with the rest of the females doing UT for a really long time when all the other supervisors were getting moved around. And that did frustrate me. And I spoke to my new boss, who didn't know me and didn't know anything about me, and we resolved it. All it took was a conversation. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely got pegged to go sit with the girls on the easy UT jobs, which it annoyed me, and that's why I spoke to him and we got it sorted, so it was fine.
That's good. Have you worked with many other female level 3s?
No. I did my initial level 3 with another female who was doing her initial IRATA 3 but recerting her SPRAT 3, and we were the only two going for our 3, so that was an awesome experience. That was Hannah Preston. Actually, I don't know if I should be talking about her name. She might not want that. But she is a fantastic climber. She owns her own, I think it's a guiding company, or she teaches rock climbing or something along those lines. So she's extremely knowledgeable, and she had her SPRAT 3 already, so she already knew most of the syllabus, and she was fantastic to do my 3 with. On the work front, though, the only level 3 woman I've ever actually worked with is Anna Kirkwood. Another one of those big projects where, it's not very often you get to work with other level 3s managing the same crew. Like, generally you're kind of on your own, but let alone another female. So having Anna in the same bin as me was amazing. We think the same, we work the same, we got on super well. So I thoroughly enjoyed my time working with Anna, and she's been my cross shift days and nights, a couple of times since then, and we get on amazingly. So that's been my experience. She's been awesome, and I haven't really worked with a lot of 3s other than that.
Yeah.
Any. Yeah.
I've trained lots of people, and I don't know many level 3 females.
Yeah, I definitely know of quite a number now, and I've worked with them when we were either both level 2s or I was a level 3 and they were a level 2 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, not concurrently level 3s.
Yeah. If any ladies were interested in getting into rope access as a career, what would you like to tell them? What kind of advice would you pass along to them?
It doesn't really change between men and women, to be honest, but I do get this question a lot, being the admin of that Facebook page and everything. Um, I generally point people in the direction of the group, to be honest. I'll tell them go ask everybody and get like a well-rounded answer. But my specific advice would be if you don't have your rope ticket yet and you don't have a skill or a trade, go and get one. Go and figure out what it is that's needed on rope and what you might enjoy and pursue it. Because once you get your rope access ticket, as probably a lot of us know, if you're just a climber, and then you try and get a welding apprenticeship or an electrical apprenticeship, it's really hard to get hours once you're already a rope tech working for a rope access company, and it's really hard to get hours in varied tasks. Maybe an electrician does a ton of heat trace but nothing else on rope. So I would definitely get skilled up and then get your rope ticket, or at least don't get your level 3 until you're really good at the job that you're going to do on your rope, because once you're a level 3, you're in too high a demand. It's really hard to get experience in your ticket. Trust me. Level 3.
Yeah, because you don't have a trade, correct?
I don't have a trade. I do have a weld inspection ticket, but I didn't get it until after I did my level 3. So it took over 18 months for me to be put on a job as a weld inspector and not a level 3. Wow. So I've only just started getting experience in my ticket, even though I've had it for forever. It's not forever, but a while. So I'm definitely really behind the 8 ball in terms of the weld inspection, which is frustrating, but it is what it is. That's why I'm recommending don't get your 3 until you're good at your job.
Yeah. And like we're just having the trade prior to getting into rope access, it gives you that foot in the door. You're a little bit more employable. Just as a rope access technician starting from 1 with no trade, there's a lot of level 1, so it's very hard to find work as a regular technician. Even though the jobs require those individuals, it's still very hard for individuals that just have their level 1 to get work here in Canada.
Definitely, and especially in the environment that we're immersed in oil and gas, you need a trade ticket. And there are labourers out there, but you're going to find it hard to get flights and all that sort of thing if you don't have something backing you up. I mean, there's always window washing and all that, but if you want to go further than that, definitely look at upskilling. My second piece of advice would be stay a level 2 forever.
I'm not even going to deny that one. Trust me, I love being a level 2. I love being an instructor, but you can't be an instructor and a level 2. So it's kind of a catch-22 there for sure. Yeah, like just being a rope access technician with no trade in the oil and gas industry is extremely difficult. And to get your foot in the door is even more difficult. Once you get in the door, you have that ability to prove yourself and show your worth, but to get that callback from the companies is very, very hard. I know being involved in the hiring process of one of the largest rope access companies in the country, being involved with that is like I kept pushing for more and more just rope techs, but obviously I was always overlooked just because the work demands the tradespeople and they come first. Now, outside of that, we have window washing, we have geo work, and so many different areas of work that those technicians can thrive extremely well. But then you're going to have to go up through level 1, level 2, and get your level 3, and become a valuable level 3 to get called into those oil and gas jobs, because that certification is required in the oil and gas industry if you don't have a trade. But to get work prior to that is very, very hard.
Totally. And if you come into oil and gas as a level 3 that's only done window washing or only done blasting or whatever, you're still at a major disadvantage. You've still got a lot of months of learning before Absolutely. You're really competent, for sure.
Yeah. And it's 2 totally different areas of expertise. And unfortunately, you kind of get pigeonholed into one area. You're going to go oil and gas and get stuck doing oil and gas, and for many reasons, right? We're always looking for to better our lives and stuff, and where you have that financial support, and the oil and gas definitely does do that, but it doesn't give you the well-rounded expertise that you can get from working on geo work, window washing, bridge inspections. There's so many different areas there you can work.
To people who already have their ticket and they're not necessarily asking advice, the advice I would give them would be to go and do something else. If it's viable for you, go and try something else that's completely the opposite of what you're doing right now on rope, because there's nothing more valuable than a level 3 that's got the wide range of experience on rope, for sure.
Yeah, and myself included, I have hard time picking up jobs that are not oil and gas. And it's interesting because you would expect that, okay, you're a level 3, like you should be able to kind of work wherever, but then they're just like, oh, you're overqualified. Oh, we can't pay you what you want to make in the oil and gas. And I'm just like, but that's like, I'm reaching out to you, go work on wind turbines or wash windows, and they won't even respond because they're like, we just can't pay you what you're worth. And it's like, but I'm approaching you. You're not approaching me. So it's kind of like a little bit of a come see. Like, I understand the market. Like, I understand that wind turbine work cannot pay what one would get paid in the oil and gas. Like, you work in Fort McMurray, and the amount of money that people make working in in that environment specifically is incredible. But I'm not asking to go work in Fort McMurray. I'm asking to go work on a wind turbine. Very different. Lastly here, before we get going, do you think that there should be more female instructors in rope access? If so, and not trying to be biased or anything, why do you think that women rope access instructors would be valuable?
I think there should be more women instructors for sure. Not for any particular reason specifically to instructing, I don't think. It's just the numbers are disgusting. Like, I've got them here in front of me, and for the difference between 2017 to 2020 in IRATA trained active female technicians, like, went from 1.8% of level 1s were female in 2017 to 2% in 2020. For level 2s, 1.1% to 1.3%. For level 3s, 0.6% to 0.7%. Like, these are ridiculously shitty numbers. And then for instructors, I never had data in 2017, but there are only 8 IRATA instructors in the world right now, but they make up 2.19% of the instructing population. So there's actually more instructors per capita female than in any other level, which blows my mind. But it's still a crappy number, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it'd be amazing to have more female instructors, just to have more females in general. But I guess, yeah, from my experience, having somebody that can relate to you in terms of your size, your weight, your build, your capabilities, being slightly different to that of like some 250-pound gym rat dude, is really beneficial. I mean, you were my trainer for my level 2, and I went into that course not knowing if I was even capable, of picking, like, God, the guys on my course were ridiculously huge. It was stupid. Yeah. And I remember going in not knowing if I could even do it. They'll give us the crack, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And coming out the other end, like, what the hell was I worried about, right? Yeah. And that's because you weigh about as much as a feather as well. So, yes. You were able to give...
Hey, I'm a big boy here.
Yeah, sure.
Come on.
Yeah, so, like, you were able to give me that guidance that I needed to overcome the bullshit thought process, as well as just the physical hurdles. So, going forward from that, I really valued that. And I've heard other people have had experiences where they've had a male trainer, and he's just not been able to see it from that perspective because he has never had that issue, himself. Like, it's pretty easy to set up a counterbalance when you weigh the same as or more than the other guy, but when you weigh half as much, it becomes significantly more different. So yes, having somebody who can empathize and instantly guide you through everything you need to be guided through because they've had to deal with it themselves, so beneficial.
Absolutely. Like, you don't have the strength. I can Now, when you did your initial level 3, you had that other individual that was currently a Sprat 3 going for conversion, and then you had your research. Um, Now, you've already been through the process, so you already kind of already have your little tricks and kind of have your own way of, doing the maneuvers, but that definitely helps out with just having someone that's relatable to and then can empathize on the fact that you don't have the same strength. And like I've worked with a couple of instructors that just look at the smaller people and they're just like, just pull harder, just do it. And I'm like, but I look at them and I'm just like, but I can't do that myself. They're like, yeah, you can. I'm like, no, like that's just the actual, like that's the facts. It's like we don't have the strength or the mass to, compensate for that situation.
I'd like it to be more of the mass side of it than the strength. Strength definitely comes into it, but yeah, like the perfect example is the basic pick from a crawl. That's got nothing to do with strength ever for
None.
anybody, right?
None.
It's all about mass. And so, yeah, just having those little couple of tips up your sleeve is really helpful. Sorry. Yeah, and like on this last research, my trainer was absolutely fantastic. Like he was amazing, but there was a couple of things there, like belly of the beast. I came in and I was trying to do it too high because he's like, that'll make it easier for you coming out. But for me, with what I am, it was easier for me to go way lower to begin with to get them out of it and then just drag them up. That just worked for me and my size and what I was capable of. So, it's just those little things. And that may not even be a male-female thing. That might just be a personal technique as well. Who knows?
Absolutely. Now, you did mention you have the numbers between level 1, 2, and 3. You don't really have the numbers based on instructors, but do you think an intimidation factor kind of weighs into that aspect, going from like why there's a decrease in upgrades in the female gender?
I have been looking at these numbers for a while, wondering the same thing. There was actually a really interesting conversation on this exact topic a month or two ago in the private group. And what it came down to is, yes, there's potentially an intimidation factor. Like I said, coming into my level 2, I was, didn't know if I could do it, which sounds, now I feel ridiculous even saying that. But, back then, it's quite intimidating. But also, the big point that was brought across in this discussion is that women get to a certain point in time and then they'll have a baby. And unfortunately for the rope access career, they often don't return to rope access after that. Not everybody, obviously there's definitely women I know that have gone back to it, but oftentimes being in rope access involves travel, and that just becomes too hard basket with the child, so we sort of maybe in the end put it down to potentially it being having a family. But I really don't know. It's really quite sad, those level 3 numbers.
Yes. Yeah, I was shocked myself that was the growth percentage myself. Like it's disheartening, really.
Few years I've seen so many more women on sites, like from where I began to where I am now. Like the number I felt like had increased a lot. It's very rarely I go to a site now and there isn't other females. But that's rope access expanding. Like the change isn't in females, it's just in the industry as a whole, and you can see that in our pathetic growth numbers. So I really, really hope that those start to increase soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think conversations like this will really help out with that, even if it's just calming the minds of intimidation, being like, hey, like it is totally fine and we can make it through, and it doesn't matter what your size is, as long as you have a good instructor to empathize with you, anything's possible. And not just saying that the instructor is the key point to that, but it definitely helps out.
For sure, it helps out for sure. And having a good support crew in the other women that you meet through this, as well as just your everyday crew. You know,
Yeah.
everyone should always be helping each other, regardless of who you are and what sex you are. So, yeah, I think it'd be really good to see some more women.
Awesome. Now, do you still have the Facebook page active and the Instagram page still active for people to start following?
Yes, still active, totally. Definitely don't post as much as I should, but yes, still active.
Awesome. And where would people be able to find you there?
Oh, just type in women in rope access in either of those, and they should be the only accounts.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and it was a pleasure chatting with you and catching up.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Have a great one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, well, that was a great conversation we had with Leslie Poulson, the founder of Women in Rope Access, giving her perspective on that subject. It's kind of an interesting conversation because really there aren't a lot of females in this industry. But I think through the conversations like this, we can get more. Well, thank you very much for tuning into this episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast, please make sure to follow us. Also, don't forget to follow Women in Rope Access on both Instagram and Facebook. Till next time, see you later.